Kelsey had never felt more vulnerable in her life. It was supposed to be a simple family gathering, a casual picnic in the park with David's parents, Tim and Donna, along with his siblings, cousins, and a few family friends. David had been everything she ever dreamed of: supportive, kind, protective. But meeting his family was a whole new realm, one she hadn't anticipated would feel like stepping onto enemy territory. The sun was bright that day, the sky an endless stretch of blue, perfect for the light-hearted occasion. Kelsey had dressed carefully, picking a modest floral sundress that was comfortable but also gave her a sense of grace and elegance. She wanted to impress them, to show David's family that she belonged in his life. But that hope quickly evaporated the moment Tim called her over with a sly grin, holding out what appeared to be a gift box. Everyone's eyes were on her, watching expectantly. Uncertain but eager to participate, Kelsey opened it and pulled out the contents. Her breath hitched. A clown costume, complete with a garish red wig, an oversized polka-dotted suit, and a pair of floppy shoes. Laughter erupted from the group as if on cue, the sound echoing across the picnic grounds. Her cheeks burned with embarrassment, the joy of the day spiraling into shame. Donna's laugh was the loudest. "We thought it would be funny. You know, lighten the mood," she said, waving her hand dismissively as if Kelsey's discomfort was trivial. But the sting of their so-called prank cut deep. Before Kelsey could respond, David stepped in. His normally easygoing demeanor vanished, replaced with a sharp intensity. "Enough," he snapped at his family, his voice loud enough to silence the entire group. He turned to Kelsey, his eyes full of concern. "You don't have to wear that," he said softly, taking the costume from her hands and tossing it aside. "What the hell were you all thinking?" David's voice was firm, teetering on anger. "This isn't funny. It's humiliating." Kelsey was grateful for David's defense, but the damage was done. The day was ruined. And though Tim and Donna offered half-hearted apologies, Kelsey couldn't shake the feeling that this family, his family, was testing her, maybe even trying to drive her away. But David was there for her, holding her hand, promising that it wouldn't happen again. She wanted to believe him. Months passed, and Kelsey married David despite the uneasy relationship with his parents. It seemed, at least outwardly, that David's family had accepted her, but the sting from that picnic remained fresh in Kelsey's mind. Then came the invitation, a formal dinner at one of the city's finest restaurants, an attempt at reconciliation. Tim and Donna extended the olive branch, apologizing for their past behavior. Donna even went as far as sending a message, "We want to make things right. Family is everything." But Kelsey couldn't shake her suspicion. She had spent countless hours mulling over their motivations, wondering if they were genuine or if this was another opportunity to humiliate her. She brought up her concerns to her best friend, Marcus, a man who knew her better than anyone, even before David had come into her life. "Do you think they really mean it this time?" she asked Marcus one afternoon while visiting him at the restaurant he owned. It was a lavish place, known for its discretion and high-profile clientele. Kelsey knew Marcus was always a phone call away if she needed help. He leaned against the counter, crossing his arms as he considered her question. "Kelsey, I don't trust them. Not after what they pulled at that picnic. But if you're going, I'll make sure everything runs smoothly. You won't be blindsided. If something goes wrong, I've got your back." Her heart warmed at his reassurance. Marcus had always been her rock, and she trusted him completely. "Thank you. It means a lot," she said, though her stomach still churned with unease. The night of the dinner arrived. Kelsey and David arrived at the restaurant, greeted by a formally dressed hostess who smiled warmly, recognizing Kelsey from Marcus's frequent mentions. They were shown to a private dining room that had been specially reserved for the family reunion. But as soon as they entered, Kelsey noticed something was off. There were only 3 chairs. "Where's my seat?" Kelsey asked, trying to keep her voice steady, though her pulse quickened. David's face hardened immediately. He turned to his parents, who were seated at the table, calmly sipping wine. "This had better be a mistake," he said, his voice low and dangerous. Donna smiled sweetly, too sweetly. "Oh, dear, we must have miscounted. There's always a mix-up when it comes to seating arrangements." But Kelsey knew. This wasn't an accident. It was another cruel game, another attempt to make her feel like an outsider. David's fury was palpable. "This is unacceptable," he said, grabbing Kelsey's hand. "We're leaving." But just as they were about to walk out, Marcus appeared. "Not so fast," he said, his eyes flickering with recognition of the situation. "I've got a table set for you both in the VIP section. Follow me." Relief flooded through Kelsey as Marcus led them to a secluded area, away from the eyes of David's manipulative family. It was a gesture of protection, and one Kelsey wouldn't forget. Marcus had always come through for her, and tonight was no exception. Seated in the elegant VIP section, Kelsey and David tried to enjoy their meal, but the tension from the earlier incident hung in the air like a storm cloud. As they ate in relative silence, the hum of conversations from other diners around them only seemed to emphasize the growing unease. Tim and Donna, undeterred, sauntered over, attempting to smooth things over once again. "David, Kelsey, we didn't mean to upset you," Tim said, his voice dripping with false sincerity. "Let's just enjoy the evening together as a family." But David wasn't having it. "You don't get it, do you?" His voice was cold, edged with fury. "This was never about an honest mistake. You've been testing Kelsey since day one, and I'm done with it." Kelsey admired David's strength, but she also felt the overwhelming weight of being the source of this conflict. She loved David's loyalty, yet the idea that she was driving a wedge between him and his family haunted her. "You're blowing this out of proportion," Donna said, her voice wavering, but Kelsey could see through her. The older woman's eyes held resentment, a glimmer of triumph, as though she had won some twisted battle. Marcus appeared again, quietly observing the scene from a distance, sensing the tension. It wasn't long before the complaints from other customers started trickling in about the disruptive presence of David's parents. With a heavy sigh, Marcus approached the table once more, his face resolute. "Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker," Marcus said, addressing them with firm politeness, "I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Your presence is disturbing the other patrons." For a brief moment, shock flickered across their faces, as if they couldn't believe that someone had the audacity to challenge them in public. But Marcus wasn't backing down. Neither was David. As Tim and Donna stormed out, their forced civility cracking under pressure, Kelsey felt an odd mixture of relief and guilt wash over her. This wasn't the resolution she had hoped for. But perhaps it was the one that had been inevitable. The fallout from the dinner was swift. David's phone buzzed with angry texts from his parents, who painted themselves as the victims of an overreaction. At first, he ignored them, but the messages kept coming, each one more venomous than the last. "I can't believe this," David muttered, scrolling through the barrage of angry rants. "Block them," Kelsey said quietly, leaning against the counter in their kitchen. She had spent the night replaying every moment, feeling the weight of the evening press heavily on her. "They're never going to change, David. Not if we keep letting them." David looked at her, his brow furrowed in frustration. He knew she was right. But the pain of cutting ties with his own family was something he hadn't fully come to terms with yet. David's hesitation lingered in the air, his thumb hovering over the block button. Kelsey watched him, knowing how difficult this decision was for him. He had always been close to his parents, even if their relationship had grown strained over the years. Cutting them off wasn't just about setting boundaries, it was about severing the emotional ties that had defined much of his life. "They're my parents," David whispered, almost to himself, as if searching for justification in their actions. Kelsey moved closer, gently resting her hand on his arm. "I know. And I'm not asking you to hate them or forget them. But you have to protect yourself. Protect us." Her words hung between them, a delicate truth. David's family had manipulated and belittled Kelsey since the beginning, and while David had always stood up for her, this constant battle was wearing him down. His loyalty was tearing him apart, pulling him in two different directions, his love for his wife and his deep-seated obligation to his family. Finally, with a deep sigh, David made his decision. He tapped the screen, blocking both his parents' numbers. The phone went silent in his hand, as if the weight of their constant presence had finally been lifted. But the silence brought no relief, only a hollow sense of loss. David wrapped his arms around Kelsey, pulling her into a tight embrace. "I'm sorry," he whispered into her hair. "I should have done this sooner." Kelsey squeezed him back, her heart swelling with gratitude for his choice but aching for the pain she knew it caused him. "We're in this together," she said softly, trying to reassure him. "It's not your fault." But even as she spoke the words, she couldn't help but wonder what the long-term effects of this decision would be. The Whitakers weren't the kind of people to quietly disappear. Cutting them off might have ended one battle, but it could very well trigger a war. As weeks turned into months, life began to settle into a new normal for Kelsey and David. Without the constant interference from his family, their relationship flourished. They spent more time focusing on each other, rebuilding the peace that had been disrupted by the toxic presence of Tim and Donna. Yet, even as they moved forward, shadows from the past lingered. One quiet evening, Kelsey was sitting on the couch, reading a novel, when she noticed a strange look cross David's face. He had been going through old photo albums from his childhood, something he hadn't done in years, perhaps in an attempt to reconcile with the memories of his family. A single picture had caught his attention, his brow furrowing as he examined it closely. "What is it?" Kelsey asked, setting her book aside. David held up the photograph. It was a picture of him as a young boy, no older than 10, sitting on his mother's lap at a birthday party. In the background, partially obscured by the other guests, stood a man Kelsey didn't recognize, a tall figure with sharp features, his face turned away from the camera. "I don't know who that is," David muttered, flipping the picture over to check the date. "This was my 10th birthday, but I don't remember him being there." Kelsey leaned in closer, curiosity piqued. "Maybe a distant relative?" David shook his head. "I knew everyone at that party. This guy, he doesn't belong. And why would he be standing behind us like that?" The unease in David's voice was unmistakable, and it sent a shiver down Kelsey's spine. There was something unsettling about the figure in the photo, almost like he had been watching the family, not part of it. They set the album aside, trying to dismiss the strange feeling, but that night, Kelsey couldn't shake the image from her mind. It wasn't just the mysterious figure that bothered her, it was the look on Donna's face in the photo. Her smile was forced, her eyes distant, as if she had been distracted by something, or someone, behind her. The mystery of the man in the photograph lingered in David's mind for days. He became consumed with trying to uncover the identity of the stranger, combing through old family photos and asking anyone who might remember the party. But no one had any answers. One evening, after a long day at work, David received a call from an unknown number. He hesitated but answered, curiosity getting the better of him. The voice on the other end was low and raspy, barely above a whisper. "You don't know the whole story, David," the voice said. "Your mother, she's been keeping things from you. From all of you." David's heart pounded in his chest. "Who is this?" "Someone who knows more than you think. Someone who was there, watching. Ask Donna about Mark. See if she tells you the truth." Before David could ask anything else, the line went dead, leaving him standing in stunned silence. He turned to Kelsey, who had overheard part of the conversation. "What was that about?" she asked, worry evident in her eyes. "I don't know," David said, shaking his head. "But I think my mother has been hiding something." Kelsey frowned, her mind racing. This was more than just family drama. There was something deeper at play, something that had been buried long ago. "Who's Mark?" she asked, voicing the question that hung between them. David didn't answer, but the name sent a chill down his spine. He had never heard of anyone named Mark in his family. Not once. Determined to get answers, David and Kelsey decided to confront Donna. They hadn't spoken to his parents since the disastrous dinner, but this time, David wasn't looking for reconciliation, he was looking for the truth. They arranged to meet Donna at a neutral location, a small cafe far from the places they usually frequented. When she arrived, Donna looked older, more frail than Kelsey remembered. The tension between mother and son was palpable as they sat down at the table, the unspoken years of resentment and distance hanging between them like a heavy curtain. "What is this about?" Donna asked, her voice clipped, though there was a nervous edge to her tone. David didn't mince words. "Who's Mark?" The color drained from Donna's face, her hand trembling slightly as she set down her coffee cup. For a long moment, she didn't speak, her eyes darting between David and Kelsey, as if trying to assess how much they already knew. "You have no idea what you're asking," Donna finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Then tell me," David demanded. "Because I'm done with the lies." "Who is he?" Donna's eyes welled up with tears, but they weren't the kind born from sorrow, They were the tears of someone who had been holding onto a terrible secret for far too long. Mark. Donna began, her voice cracking. Mark was your father's brother. He died when you were a baby, but he never left. Kelsey felt a cold wave of realization wash over her. This wasn't just a hidden family member. This was something far darker. Something connected to that photograph. David sat back, his mind racing. What do you mean, he never left? Donna's gaze was hollow, as if she were reliving something too painful to bear. He had an affair with someone close to us. And after that, he disappeared. Your father, we covered it up. The implications were horrifying. Secrets, lies, betrayal. David's entire family history had been a web of deceit, carefully hidden beneath the surface. The days following the confrontation with Donna were surreal. David felt as though the foundation of his life had crumbled beneath him. His family wasn't what he thought it was. His childhood memories, once filled with love and security, now seemed tainted with the knowledge of his parents' secrets. But Kelsey was his rock. Together, they dug deeper into the family's past, uncovering old documents, unspoken histories, and eventually finding the truth about Mark's affair and mysterious disappearance. It turned out that Donna's jealousy had driven her to extremes. Her brother-in-law had threatened to expose her own infidelities, which had been the catalyst for his death. It was a secret she and Tim had buried for decades, believing it would never resurface. As the full picture came to light, David made peace with the fact that his parents' toxicity ran deeper than he could have ever imagined. But there was a sense of closure in knowing the truth. Kelsey and David, now free from the tangled threads of his family's lies, rebuilt their life together, stronger than ever. The distance from his parents no longer felt like a loss, but a necessary escape from a world of betrayal. Their love had endured, weathering the storm of family secrets and emerging intact on the other side. The past no longer haunted them, and for the first time, David and Kelsey looked forward to a future free from the shadows of lies. Together, they moved forward, their bond unbreakable. If you liked this story, please subscribe, like, click the bell, and leave a comment. Thank you in advance.